The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So here's something interesting. Remember Piers Morgan, not Watson, who had a show on CNN for a while. British dude. He now is putting forth a variety of reasons why he believes that Donald Trump should select him as his new chief of staff, a position that seems to be sort of troubling Trump in his ability to fill it. But he concedes that really it's desperation that is the main reason. He said nobody else is exactly storming the ramparts of the White House, demanding you hire them for the toughest job in world politics. And he now is suggesting that he might actually be a good pick for Donald Trump. Of course, I can't actually imagine that the president would consider a non-American for this position, but I love, Pat, the fact that it has become like a toxic position. Nobody wants to do this. And of course, by nobody, I don't literally mean nobody. He's going to be able to fill it. There are many people who would accept the job. But the fact that it's so tough is just so great.
I think that Trump would consider a foreigner. He did, after all, have Sebastian Gorka in the White House as an advisor for some time. And maybe Piers Morgan is the right choice for him because he seems to be a Trump apologist. When Trump visited Europe a few months back, Piers Morgan was the one person who was allowed to interview him. And also, Piers Morgan was the winner of one of his Celebrity Apprentice shows. I actually, unfortunately, used to watch that show and liked it quite a bit in my younger years. And Piers Morgan was also an enemy, you could say an arch enemy, to Omarosa on that show. And Trump and Omarosa now are not on good terms.
Yeah, it's like an enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. I understand that Sebastian Gorka, who's what, like Hungarian, or maybe he's of Hungarian origin, but actually British.
British, yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah. He was an advisor to Trump. I think chief of staff putting in a foreigner might be a bit much. But listen, who am I to say? Trump has done things we never imagined any president would do. But putting that aside for a second, I thought that Piers Morgan was on the left. I understand the whole thing about how he was allowed to interview Trump, but maybe that's because of some personal relationship that Trump has with him from him being a participant on The Apprentice. But isn't Piers Morgan on the left? And he had a big debate with Alex Jones on his program. He had a big debate with Ben Shapiro on his program. He's not actually like a conservative, is he? I just don't know much about him.
That does refresh my memory. He certainly is on the left when it comes to gun issues, but when it comes to economics and other policy, I'm not sure exactly where he stands. But I think above all else, above policy, he's one of these Trump guys, and that's a dangerous thing. That's a scary person to be.
Yeah, aside from being a Democrat, a Republican, a liberal, a conservative, some of the most dangerous people are the Trump sycophants. I'm not saying Piers Morgan is one of them, but I'm saying that transcends political orientation and the political spectrum in some sense. I don't think it'll be Piers Morgan. I think there's a list of people already, and it's going to be one of them more than likely, but funny to think about. Let's talk about McDonald's. I have not been to McDonald's at this point in something like 16 or 17 years, other than the one near Washington Square in Manhattan where I had to go to the bathroom one day years ago. But in any case, McDonald's says that they are going to try to be part of the solution rather than the problem when it comes to global health and food security related to antibiotic resistance, okay? A lot of beef is raised with antibiotics. And the more you give antibiotics to cows and to livestock, bacteria can more quickly start to adapt and resist those antibiotics, and that eventually the drugs could become ineffective altogether for people, right? So this is an issue. We've talked about antibiotic resistance in individuals, and a lot of people think, well, if I just don't overuse antibiotics, if I really make sure that it's not just a virus that I could wait out before I accept antibiotics from the doctor, depending on how trigger happy your doctor is to prescribe antibiotics, that you would be okay. The problem is that because a lot of livestock is given antibiotics, eating a lot of that meat can potentially make you antibiotic resistant in the same way that overusing medical antibiotics can make you. So what McDonald's says it's going to do is to start going in the direction of buying meat and using meat in their products. Some of their products do have meat. That's shocking to a lot of people. That has not been treated with antibiotics to try to move away from that. And a few years ago, McDonald's said that with their poultry suppliers, they were putting in place a policy where they don't want poultry that has been given antibiotics. And now they are saying they are going to use a sort of similar approach when it comes to their beef supply. And what I end up with, Pat, is I'm still not going to McDonald's. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I actually had a bet with producer Max over whether or not you would mention the fact that you haven't been to a McDonald's in over 10 years. And it looks like I won that bet because you brought that up right off the bat. When it comes to this, I think it's good to see McDonald's self-regulating, right? This isn't something that the government is forcing them into. It could come down to PR at the end of the day, but McDonald's, I think, is going in the right direction. Healthier options, not going to use antibiotics anymore. I don't know if they still have that pink slime stuff, but I certainly hope they don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, when their chicken nuggets are basically a bunch of that mechanically separated chicken, then breaded and deep fried. So yeah, the pink slime they still have, although unless I've missed something and there's some new way that they can make chicken nuggets, but as far as I know, they still do have that. Now, will you now, because you've talked about vegan breakfast at McDonald's, Pat, which is like black coffee, no cream, no milk. I believe it's a hash brown, which I would be shocked if it's actually vegan, but okay. Well, and then the oatmeal cooked in water with no cream or something like that?
You got that exactly right. That's a hearty vegan breakfast for you. I'm pretty sure the hash browns are vegan there because they use oil, not butter. And also, you know, PETA, which isn't the best organization, I'll admit, they do have websites where you'll see the vegan alternatives and vegan options at various restaurants and chain restaurants like McDonald's. And I did see hash browns on that list, so I think we're good to go.
Okay, well, very good. If anybody is looking to continue, if you're vegan but you want to reward McDonald's for making this decision when it comes to beef, you have a few options for what you can get at McDonald's. And that's that. I don't think I have too much else to say about McDonald's in this particular case, but they're making the right decision. Still not going to go there. Full stop. Okay, we have been following the story about the chief financial officer of the Chinese tech giant Huawei. Am I saying that correctly, Pat?
Think about Yahweh, like the word for God, and then just pronounce the first letter a little bit differently. I think it's Huawei.
Huawei. Okay. The CFO for Huawei has been released on bail in Canada, and there is now going to be a massive legal fight over extradition to the United States. This is the case of Meng Wanzhou, who was arrested in Vancouver earlier this month. And this now is taking on kind of a life of its own, especially after Donald Trump suggested he might intervene if it would help pursue a trade deal with China. I mean, understand what we're talking about here. Intervening in the arrest of someone in Canada, not because the United States has some particular vested interest or duty to defend that particular individual, not necessarily because they are being targeted in some way that the United States would have a stake in particularly, but because it could be used to try to negotiate with China. Is this evil genius, Pat, or should Trump be applauded for saying, hey, maybe here's something I can do?
Well, aside from the strategy of it all, I think it's absolutely horrible, and it just goes to show that we do indeed have a two-tiered justice system here in the United States. Because if she wasn't the CFO of Huawei and she was instead a small business owner or a plumber, there's no way that she would be used as a bargaining chip in some sort of international trade deal, and that's where I come down on this.
Well, she was the CFO was allegedly, who is the daughter, by the way, of the founder of Huawei, allegedly helped the company dodge sanctions on Iran. So on December 1st, when she was laying over on a trip in Vancouver's airport in Canada, she was arrested. And now she has been granted a $7.5 million US dollar bail, 10 million in Canadian dollars, after 3 days of court hearings. And she is now out. One condition of release is that she has to surrender her passports and live in one of her homes in Vancouver. She will also have to pay for round-the-clock security and wear a GPS ankle bracelet. I have no idea what's going to happen with this. I don't pretend to know what's going to happen with this, but this is becoming a case of international intrigue, cronyism, negotiations, and politicians finding sketchy ways to do things that will benefit them in some way. I genuinely have no idea what the future of this story is, Pat.
And you know, back in February, the CIA said that Americans should not purchase Huawei phones at risk of China apparently spying on us. And that was super interesting, and a lot of people were up in arms about it because apparently they are, on some metrics, superior phones than the stuff that we have here. And this is, I guess, sort of an update to that. I mean, it's just kind of like the next layer in the whole international relations phone debacle.
Yeah. Send me your thoughts. What do you think of Donald Trump's involvement? What do you think of the decision that Canada made to affect this arrest? And what do you think about the future of using sort of, I mean, I guess I'm calling them personal favors. They're not even really personal favors, but the idea of using this type of incident to then use it as leverage for negotiating trade deals. What do you think about that in terms of the precedent that it would set? I want to hear from you. That does it for today. New show, new bonus show tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.